For Game 7, the first game of Day 2, let's see what they've had at the drawing board. Let's see exactly what they've had cooking overnight.
We're heading right in game number 7. We saw so many off-spawn engagements yesterday. So many clutches, huge shots. We saw betrayal when it comes to POI landings. We'll see whether there's updates in that regard around the map, but a fight that we were accustomed to seeing towards the back end of yesterday. Clown, Ref's Guard, over here just towards the west of the Bugle, Siren and Asvi below them. Who will come out on top of this fight in Day 2? It looks like Ref's Guard and Clown are a bit battle damaged right now, opting to try and get away. And Asvi actually maybe getting a bit too big for his boots, overstepping his line, getting taken out. And so now Siren trying to find space to get the revive off, but a rocky start here.
Definitely giving Ref's Guard a little bit of time. Did not expect the third party to come from the right side. I think that's the biggest issue for Asvi right now. All good though. This fight kind of dictates who controls the middle of the map. Who gets to leave first for third parties on the top right side.
Yeah, it's all goody. Just the first game of the day, at least, right? And we saw game 1 yesterday wasn't necessarily a reflection of how that day would go out in terms of the teams who were able to do well. You know, it does take time for some of these teams to get into their rhythm. But ultimately, for some of these teams, especially if you're higher up in the standings, you don't really got time on your side. You just have to hit the ground running, be ready. Flois and Mappy, unfortunately, Mappy wasn't quite ready off spawn as he's down. And so Flois, in a clutch situation, has a bit of a loadout in terms of his weaponry arsenal, but the materials are seriously lacking. Podesai and Snazy will very much be looking to make up for some of the lost time yesterday. They didn't have the best of days, and certainly a team with high expectations going into the final. This is their chance to rewrite history.
Definitely a vibe of continuation from day number 1 instead of a new beginning of day number 2. We saw so many surprises, you mentioned, just game 1 in general from yesterday. Things we didn't expect to happen, things just exploding left and right. It feels like now in day 2 is kind of just the same old, same old.
Yeah, so far, I think it's definitely a slower paced start. Similar to what we did see in game 6, right? Where teams are a bit more cautious. As I say that though, things are really kicking off. Flois is found out. Podesai and Snazy, the Frenchies, will win out here. And their journey to trying to move their way up in the standings will continue. These two, Malibuca and Stasha, team that I have predicted to leave today as the winners, currently sitting in 3rd. The most interesting thing with them today will be whether or not some of their off-spawn success will continue and translate into wins, of course. Landing towards the top side of Command Cavern, they can often go up against Pinkin and Nas, which is a very interesting fight we saw play out at times yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about off-spawn success. I would say off-spawn is the question for them overall, right? Are they ever going to be successful game after game? Because they spent a lot of time in the cavern overall. Sometimes it did not go well whatsoever, and that's what's kind of hindering them, I feel like, from even just being in first.
Well, if there's anyone that's going to hinder their chance of getting first, it will be Aqua and Vino, the current first-place team. A dominant performance from Aqua and Vino. All throughout yesterday, it felt like they were just on point, except for really the last game. Game 6, they finally showed us that they are human. They do bleed, but I expect them to come out today and look a lot better. Of course, they're landing the bottom side of Command Cavern. Game to game, depending on where the Gunner NPC spawns, they also do have access to the Vault there as well. So definitely a team we'll continue to watch out for. And along that same vein, sorry, Ziandi, Joe, Mini Miner, big these guys up and sort of broke down how they've been so successful. And another example of a team Shire where, you know, in terms of the actual circumstances, I don't think much will change. I do expect these guys to continue on that top trajectory they've been on.
Actually very impressed by them in general because they were contested to start off the day. I think this is the most impressive bout of display we've seen so far, just off spawn in terms of pushing someone out, being in the top 5, and just thriving all the way on the south side at Synapse Station. Past that, Fury, Bubak, I think we started with them overall yesterday at this fight near the Sanctuary. And whether it's the Sanctuary, the Joneses, the jungle, that's where things just get a little bit too crazy, too hot to handle.
Yeah, these fights can often be very exhilarating or the opposite. I think what we saw yesterday was some of these fights would play out relatively quickly. Yapko and Savid at times did have their struggles in the earlier games, maybe start to piece things together towards the end of the day. So they're sitting here at 24th, middling right now. But another example of a team where this is the opportunity now to make up for lost time. Boo back in Fury. Interesting because they're a team who are revered a lot of the time for their fighting ability. Haven't quite been able to translate that, and so we'll see if they can maybe hit some harder hitting shots today. It's the best time to do it, best time of the season, last day of the finals when everything matters just that bit more. Belusi in the feed taking out Grolls, that will be interesting to follow. So we got action going on all over the place.
Cafe Melody, same hill. Going for the same tags. When it comes to your early game checklist, what are some of the key things that teams must do? What are Cafe and Melody doing right now to ensure that, you know, the rest of the game goes well?
Well, the big thing, right, is in terms of just any basic Fortnite fundamental, you want to get loot, right? You want to acquire a loadout, get your loot. We had some brilliant content pieces around, you know, the loot that teams will try and the loadouts teams will try to acquire. And once you loot, you want to farm, make sure you get your materials up to max.
Absolutely, and make sure that you have everything set up for the rest of your game. Now, we just looked at Chucho Trulex. We also looked overall at, you know, Cafe and Melody, how they're going. Their counterparts, Seti and Cammy, also really interesting with them overall, how they move. I believe we have Reese on the sidelines looking at exactly what goes into the early games with Seti and Cammy specifically.
Your beliefs have indeed come true. I am here. Say and Cammy are in the exact position that I just talked about at the top of the show. And as I'm saying that, they're in a cannon because they've just managed to get a ton of tags onto what I'm guessing is Kefi and Melody here, because they're the ones who usually take this hill for them.
Really nice update there from Reese, right? This is one of the key fundamentals, right? After you have gotten your loot, you have farmed your materials, or even while you're doing so, you'll see these top teams are looking for these strong positions, elevated positions on hills, mountains, where they can have a line of sight which allows them to take shots at players, accumulate damage. And for maybe the people who are watching the FNCS final for the first time, or any competitive Fortnite for the first time, Shai, would you like to tell them why they need to deal damage, even if it isn't for an elimination?
Yes, you want to make sure you're staying aggressive, staying active. If not, lightning will start to strike you from the skies. How and why? It's a mechanic in the game called Storm Surge. So essentially, the rule is deal damage or get dealt damage to. We've just kind of alluded to it multiple times. It happens in some instances when the zones are starting to move from the 2nd to 3rd, and then onwards from that, there's one at the 5th zone and one at the 7th as well. Just want to make sure there are enough players in the lobby still active, not just hiding in bases, everyone having a checklist of their own for the mid game.
Yeah, and it's why you'll see players going to great lengths to put themselves in position to deal damage, right? Of course, if you can get an elimination, you're going to get an elimination as well, right? You know, the profit that you can get from that is, of course, going to be significant. But ultimately, you want to stay above that Storm Surge line in your pursuit to getting to the later stages of the game.
When it comes to Mustache Malabuka, they've done pretty well so far in staying ahead of Surge generally. You specifically, Levin, predicting this team. Talk to me about the expectations you had coming into the day and the things you've seen in day one. How do they kind of differ and look like for Mustache Malabuka?
I think when it comes to expectation, the expectation was this is a team that very much doesn't have problems with Surge because they are so effective at dealing damage. They are such prominent fighters. They have silly aim. They understand relatively good positions, and so they're always good on Surge. When you allow these guys to get to endgame, they are one of the most dominant teams in Fortnite history when it comes to their ability to get high elimination games. We saw that yesterday as well, where Mustache had, what, a 12 elimination game by himself, right? Of course, these guys, you know, they do heavy damage. And yesterday, I think things sort of played out how you'd expect for them. Of course, we know the off-spawn battles they have, and so sometimes they might not get games. They can play out fully as a duo. But the biggest issue that they've had, I don't think has necessarily been to do with them as a team. It's more so been how dominant the likes of Tayson and Chapix on our screen and Aqua and Vino have been. And so it might sound sad in some way, but they just have to hope. If you're Malabuka and Mustache, you have to just hope you keep playing your game and one of those two teams above you starts to slip up.
Going to be a slippery slope, but that's one of the beauties of the 12-game format, the 2 different days. Not only are you just playing your game, you have new stakes, and you'll notice cannons, if you're coming in from, you know, just playing normal Fortnite games, not arena, why aren't people just shooting others with them? Why is it only just, you know, bodies flying? That's been disabled in competitive playlists in general. So you'll see people chaining cannons and just using them for rotation. On the other side of things, towards, you know, Rocky Reels, the desert side, lots of geysers to be able to use. They have their own rotation down there.
Yeah, of course, the geysers are an interesting form. I think where we're sort of moving into the deeper stages of the game, as the second zone will start to sort of close its way in, it's going to be harder, right? All these players populated in this southern area makes it so difficult. If you get caught out in the sky, these are top-level Fortnite players. You will get shot, right? So you have to be careful. You have to be wary about how you go about that.
This is where we were just talking about Storm Surge. You can see the warning popping up on the right side of the screen. You have a damage threshold. It kind of warns players how much they kind of need to do, how many tags they need to stay above the threshold so they don't get damaged. Right now, Scram and Hellfire at risk of that damage. 73 below overall. We need to land about 2, 3, 4 AR shots to just get ahead of the line. But usually, what's the number that's good to have on threshold at this point?
Well, you want to be aiming to be around 200 or so above, right?
Insurance.
Yeah, that's a comfortable mark. It might mean that you do still have to do some damage once we get to the moving zones, but 200 above is a comfortable point, but 76 below, not comfortable. That is not where they want to be. You can see the desperation from Scram here. He's just sort of looking around anywhere possible to see if he can deal some sort of damage.
He's trying to. A few ramps up, kind of blocked.
I don't think they'll be too worried, right? Because this is a southern zone. Everybody on the map having to go towards the south side. They are in a relatively good position to actually do the damage that they need, but it's going to be about whether or not they can actually connect with the shots. They're set up in a nice position, but if they can't actually hit the shots, then their positioning will mean relatively little. Jack Poe and Savid positioned in the zone. The remnants of the fights we discussed in the Sanctuary area.
I mean, we told y'all it's going to be a slow burn if it doesn't immediately just disintegrate. See exactly what Jackal can do right now. Not much on either side. This is just going to be another delay. The map is pulling so far down right now in terms of the zone. Half of it is already just in the southern water. This is a very irregular, far distance for people to travel. I don't even think Savid predicted he'd be inside purple skies right now, but here it is. The pinch actually breaking down, pushing forward. It's Kovacs that's taken out. Another spray from Savid, left and right inside the box. This man is fighting inside the deep night of the storm and is still landing damage. Now 190 above, getting multiple knocks. Another one on Savid's wall. This time he has help from his teammates on the backside. It's Queasy who's forced to fight here, and he gets taken down.
Yeah, this is absolutely, it is mad right now, right? So much just went on there. You're seeing now Hen in a 1v1 up against Savid. Two premier names in the EU region, but both fragmented, missing their teammates. Queasy and Hen going down here, sitting in 33rd place at the moment. The reigning FNCS champions. They were so dominant last season. They've had their fair share of struggles so far in the FNCS, but in Game 7, another turbulent start. Hen has to do everything he can to clutch as a solo.
He's trying his best, but all he needs is one shot. There it is from Hen. Another launch pad in the inventory as well. Saw him literally by himself clutch up that last game in the previous season to win the finals. No stranger to solo clutches, but from this distance, it will be difficult. Vidil, Noah Riley on your screens, just battling Reason and Deceptos. Taking a few shots back and forth, they do end up winning that fight.
Yeah, the big thing with this team is that they obviously are known for being great fighters. And so we'll see whether that translates throughout. Manabuka, Mustache though, in a bit of trouble. Mustache actually goes down.
Malabuka's just kind of left by himself inside these boxes once again. This is due to the distance of how far people are traveling. Even the Cavern team, this is just such a far stretch in the desert. People are stuck, no pit stops, no chance to refarm. You make one little mistake, you are kind of struggling to get tags, storms are just popping, you don't want to be open. you get kind of stutter-stepped in where you want to go, and that happens exactly to Musashi Malabuka. They trip, they fall in game one.
Yes, exactly why when we discussed them, I said they relatively have a good understanding, right? Because they do have struggles sometimes on these southern zones. We saw it a tiny bit yesterday. We're seeing it already here in game one. The distance from Cavern all the way down towards the sort of Chonkers area, if you like, is a big distance, and one that often puts them on the more congested side of the zone without their really having a say in where they are, right? And so they go down, but that's not going to be too bad news for some of the teams right above them and below them, right? A chance to catch up if you sit currently 4th or below. And for the two teams in first and second, they will now realize this is a chance to extend our leads, secure our fight. Tripping.
You just walk up, man.
Doing his best.
Just walk up.
Yeah, at that point you do just walk up, right? At that point you do. We've all experienced that at some point playing Fortnite. You just can't quite get the loot you're trying to harpoon in.
All right, now you can kind of sense it by looking at the minimap a little bit on the bottom right of your screen. So many people in general at this moment are just stuck on that zone line. Whenever there's a zone that's kind of favorable for a few duos, you'll notice a few of them kind of splattered in the middle, in the midsection overall. But right now, that is not the case. Everyone is kind of on desperation, just survival mode. They've traveled so far. I keep mentioning this. This is not a normal zone for a lot of these players. They are just stretched to the limits. Mats, for some people, might be completely gone. I know Joe's are looking good right now. That's because he has all of Ziandes. He's a solo for the moment. His teammate, one of the big clutchers in end game, 1v2s I've seen this man just do, is down.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because we talked about zones playing a part in how difficult it can be for a team if they've had to travel a long distance. Of course, the southern zone is their home zone. It's a zone that they should be comfortable in. Of course, they're headed up north towards that Butterbarn area and now having their fair share of struggles. Tayson,
wow,
not struggling whatsoever. A brilliant display of mechanics from the man many consider to be the greatest to ever do it.
That's going to be Joe that he picks up. That's an entire team's worth of loot because we just saw him with all of Ziandy's best loadouts in the inventory. Zone kind of pulling towards the center, so it favors a lot of people. They're going to just launch pad straight in, no risks. Not the biggest rewards, but they'll be able to get in unscathed, and that's asking for the best. That's exactly what you need to see.
Yeah, they played it safe there. There was potentially a chance for them to just run their way into the safe zone, but they didn't want to risk it. They knew there'd be teams looking in that direction. They wanted to use the pad for an extra bit of speed. And we'll see that pay off for them moving forward as they're able to get into zone with quite good materials now as well.
Right now, too, Pena going down, Aquavino. Don't want a repeat of what happened yesterday near the early games. Him and Vanya were just rolling in and doing absolutely big damage on the entire server. Andretta and Kiko here too. Haven't seen too much from them overall on day one, but looking good so far right now.
Yeah, you can see they're 57 below, and so that's why Andretta was sort of almost over peaking, right? This big wide edit open, just to try to find some sort of an opportunity to deal that bit of damage. Now though, prioritizing getting to the zone and using a lot of materials to do so as well. They were finding their way in this top and they're looking for a fight, and they were ready for it.
Nice.
Really nice stuff there. Podesai, Snazy the ones to suffer at the hands of Andretta, and Jackson actually was able to get a finish as well from the distance.
See Artskill and T-Chips as well in the same kind of position. Why are people fighting? It's because they're down on Surge and that lightning is striking. You can out-heal it a little bit, but the next damage will come in the next 5 seconds. It's Thomas, HD, and Tripper, and that Artskill's trying to fight. T-Chips is now down. No minis up for Artskill either. His final shot will not hit. Tripper will take him out. That's a lot of loot. A big refresh for 3 teams so far. Thomas, HD, Aqua, and Tayson, all finding bodies worth of loadouts and mats. They're all prepped up for different layers of this endgame.
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of these top teams have brilliant setups now. A launch pad being used for Thomas and Tripper, and they had the vault this game. It's why they have these pads. And now prioritizing getting that position in the zone. And it's setting up to be a huge game for some of the teams who are already pushing the boundaries in the leaderboard.
Vino Aqua, you can see that #1 on them. That's not just a team tag, that is their place overall on the leaderboard. For every single POV you see here, those numbers on the right do dictate exactly where they are in the standings. For Seti and Cammy, it's 6th overall. You can check on the bottom left as well and see that number shining. Rifty picking up Zara a little bit. Flodax back in the game. Cammy and Sunny so far have just been riding the tide, just surfing along depending on what happens with the server. Looking consistent throughout the days. Maybe this is the game where they try to take control, have a voice that shouts rather than is just a part of the conversation.
The question is though, right, if you're them, do you stick to your guns, right? Do you stay true to what you know, what you're comfortable with? We know they're not a team that thrives in terms of getting loads and loads of eliminations, but it's definitely not out of the realms of possibility for them. No Riley Vidil. We saw them finish game 6 yesterday as the victors of the game. Are they gonna walk through and have a similar type of performance? A better off-spawn situation for them, one with more clarity, and maybe that can be the stability they need. Tasting the stability of Chapix and his chug splashes, almost running down a Dark Alley, finding himself in some trouble, and it was at the hands of Vino and Aqua.
First versus, what, second overall, just going back-to-back against each other. Vino and Aqua had a plan for this, though. Cause chaos, jump and fly. Look at everyone who's affected by this. Pink and Os, Anolexic Squeeze. Tough now in the air, losing a bit of HP. Pink and Os have to just walk the whole way, can't even hit the pad, and they're still taking lots of zone damage.
You can see Vino now looking in the backside of the zone. He knows there's people who maybe have taken a bit too long to make their decision, and so he's trying to chop down for height as well. Allows Aqua some safe passage to get back to him as well.
Right now in this dry desert, the Oasis is being with your dual partner, staying in the same builds and getting frag after frag like this. Unfortunately, Vidil's gone, so are the water and the trees for Noah Riley. Not going to be paradise for him so far, but he can cause a havoc when he gets angry, and he's a solo.
Yeah, and you can see who's very angry right now. Aqua and Vino up for height. They want it. This is where they were. They spent most of yesterday in this position, and it seems like they've been given that opportunity again today.
They're so sticky when they're up here. No single duo on this entire region, nay, maybe even the entire world, can stop them once they have height, have those split tarps, and gain control.
It's all about what these guys below can do. Hellfire and Scram will be looking to do exactly that. You can see Hellfire leading the way. Scram the insurance in the top. Tayson, though, very, very comfortable, whether it's height, low, or mid, picking up Rabbit there. And the refresh is key as they make their way back into zone as well. It's an awkward bit of terrain to try and traverse, but they'll find their way eventually.
Cammy and Seti will also try to be mid-ground perspective. They're so high up right now. What they want to do, their kind of game plan, take a lot of these eliminations away from the high ground team. Focus on those elims from the position they're in. They're crossing a rock bridge at the top, though, down at the bottom in the dirt. Chapix is there. Noah Riley is there too. Big 110 stopping Kinzel in his tracks. No one can stop this man. 5 elims. Last time we tuned in, he just had a mere 1, and he's looking at the slums, the bottom, the low ground right now, trying to pick apart any other team.
Yeah, he needs to be careful though, right? Because like you said, the zone's going right back up this hill. Vino in the zone, using the med mist, right, to buy him some time as he works his way in. Cammy and Seti, they are down at the bottom of this hill. Unfortunately for them, it's pulled backwards, so they won't have to make their way up. But the pullback zone will make things so much difficult. All these old builds now that these teams can work their way through. But you have to be careful at all times. It might not be your edit, it might not be your wall. And you're seeing the effects of that now. Hellfire and Scram running into territory they did not own. Rifty and Flodax will say goodbye to them. Aqua and Vino could almost fall asleep on the height, right? There's not much action for them. Everything just taking place below. As Clown and Rescard, who are in 5th place, look to battle it out against Seti and Cammy on this layer.
Every single team has a little bit of space to breathe, but now everything's starting to constrict. Just squeeze and collide. Vanya looking for it. Carmi next to him for the next shot. Turns around, big pump. After that, another. The third one connects, and Refsguard goes down. Vanyak doing it again. A day 1 performance might just be deja vu in day 2.
He is hitting shots like never before. But can he continue to do it? We've already seen him have a crazy solo performance, and there are plenty of opportunities for him to now hit a bunch of shots again. Seti doesn't have Cammy. Cammy has gone down. The med mist dropped to his teammate, but that might have cost him. The moment he turned around, he got taken out. And so now Vino and Aqua finally starting to put their shoes on, get ready for a bit of a run as we go the distance. Trippin as a solo. Thomas is not here. What can he do?
Gonna drop down. It's a game for solos for him. Wants to avoid that duo, the final raid boss on height. Trying to focus Vanyak, but 1 shot missed, 1 second overuses. Big damage straight to his dome. He beats one of the mini bosses down below. Still that final mission waiting for him on high ground. 1v2 for the moment. Final 2 teams, Aqua and Vino, looking to drop down. They have to take off Trippern. This man has clutched in the past. He's swapping up with all the HP, going straight back into the zone. Look at this from Aqua and Vino. Perfect positioning. They're looking to finish this trip burn. Desperately going for the med miss, maybe even going for a flank all the way up top, but Aqua sees him. A few more tags building all the way up. He might have an essence of control. Another block by Aqua. The positioning almost perfect. Vino chases him down like a hound dog. He finds his bite, and they win another game in the FNCS.
These guys continue to be ruthless. They left day one as the victors, top of the lobby. They start day two with a victory royale. And against a team in the final moments who they have been hounding down all season long. We've seen Thomas and Trippen versus Vino and Aqua all season at Command Cavern, and showing us now in the FNCS finals while they are the Command Cavern team. Game 7 is theirs.